All right, so for any of you that don't know, we're Active Minds, and we're a student-run club here at Brock. And basically our main goal is to promote awareness about mental health issues, educate the students on different mental illnesses, signs, symptoms, how to stay positive through all those stressful days, and basically try and really reduce the stigma around it. We know that 1 in 5 people suffer from a mental illness, and each one of us in our own way will be affected by some sort of negative mental emotion. So it's very important for us to raise the awareness and yeah, get things going.
So for those of you who may not know us, I'm Michael and I'm the Vice President of Active Minds here at Brock.
And I'm Lauren and I'm the President of Active Minds this year.
And so thank you to all of our members and fellow exec members who have shown support today and for everyone else who came. So tonight we're here for Speak Out Night, which is an annual event that Active Minds has hosted now for 4 years now. And it's always been a really, really great success, but it's also good to see that our numbers are getting bigger every year. I know when I attended my first Speak Out Night last year, we had, I think, like 10 people come. So the fact that our Facebook page alone had over 60 people saying that they would attend at some point throughout the night, which I'm sure they'll be here eventually. It's really great, though, to see that our numbers are growing and the awareness for these issues are growing, too. So the relative game plan for tonight is we have 3 amazing speakers who will be sharing their stories with us tonight. We're also going to have some food and refreshments coming in momentarily as soon as my phone goes off. So we will have like a natural break in between each speaker to give you guys some time to like talk and grab refreshments if you have to go to the bathroom, things like that. Just because we ask if you can try not to leave in the middle of a speech. But I know some people can only come until certain times because they have class and other commitments, which is totally cool. So yeah, we'll just kind of go from there. And then at the end of all the speeches, we're going to have like a question and answer period for the speakers. So if anybody has any questions for them. If you have a question and you have to leave at some point, let me know and I can give you a paper and some pens and you can write down questions that you have and we can ask them to our speakers after, even if you have to head out.
And again, we'll be here after the event, so if you have any other questions or any concerns, we have other resources here for you. Great.
So yeah, we will get started. Adele, I have your like intro on my phone.
Okay.
So I'm not like texting in front of me. So okay, we are going to get started here. So like I said, we have 4 really amazing speakers, and one of the goals for Speak Out Night this time around is we wanted to get multiple perspectives. So we were really fortunate enough to get Adele, who will be our first speaker. She's a really good friend of mine as well. And she's going to give the perspective on what it's like to be a friend of someone who has a mental illness. Because we think that that's really an important voice to be heard as well. Because even if you yourself aren't directly suffering from something like depression, anxiety, OCD, things like that, it does touch everyone in your life in some capacity, especially your friends, family, and loved ones. So we have Adele, who's in concurrent education, and she is from Caledonia, right? Did I pronounce that right?
Yeah.
Excellent. And some of the involvements that she's involved in, lots of really cool stuff. She's the events coordinator for the Concurrent Education Council, and she's also a crisis line volunteer for Distress Center Niagara, which I didn't know, so learn something new every day. So if we can all welcome Adele up to the front, that would be excellent.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Michael, thank you for the introduction. As he said, I'm here to talk to you about the perspective of being a friend of someone who has mental illness. So I feel very fortunate to say myself that I do not suffer from a mental illness. And given the increasing number of mental illnesses, I feel that I'm pretty lucky to be able to say that. And I'm not trying to brag about this because those who are affected by mental illnesses don't choose to be affected, and those who are not affected don't choose to be not affected either. So regardless, I just feel lucky. I'm sure many of you are in the same boat as me. You may not suffer from a mental illness, but you know someone or you've helped someone or lots of someone who have suffered. Our position isn't always easy, but as you often hear, so many recovery stories start and end with, I'm really glad that whoever was there when I was feeling really bad. I feel both humbled and proud to say that I have been that whoever. I hope that by sharing my experiences with you, you will take away some of the amazing life lessons that I have learned. I remember getting the text message at the beginning of second semester of our first year of university, and we were both living away from home. It read, "I was diagnosed with anorexia nervosa and clinical depression today." I'm not kidding you, that text was a reply to me asking, "So what's new?" I now realize how difficult that must have been for my elementary school friend to just come out and tell me what was quite literally new. He didn't say he was scared, and he didn't ask me for help. He just told me that he was sick. I instantly felt a knot form in my stomach. I wondered how I could possibly have no idea that this longtime friend of mine was in such a dark place. At the time he told me, I wasn't really educated about mental health. I knew that depression was more than having a bad day and worse than being sad, but compared to what I know now, it's safe to say that I knew pretty much nothing then. I wish I could remember what my response was to him. I'm sure it was something generic or along the lines of, "That's awful, I'm here for you." That doesn't sound so bad, but I knew that my friend needed to hear much more than that. I asked him if he had told his parents, and he hadn't. So that was my next advice. He said he would tell them when he was home that weekend. I was still so worried about him and decided to approach my Dawn in residence. My Dawn told me to go talk to a counselor at Brock. And looking back now, I understand why he said that, but at the time, I was thinking, why would I go talk to a counselor? I don't need help. How is the counselor going to help my friend who's at a different university? So I did what every 18-year-old girl does when they don't know what to do, and I called my mom. My mom had the reaction of a mother and wanted to call my friend's mom right away. And we're from a small town and everybody knows everybody, so this wouldn't be completely out of the question, but I still begged her not to say anything because my friend would be so mad at me, and he promised he was going to tell his parents that weekend. So my mom agreed to wait. The weekend came and went, and my friend still hadn't told anyone except me. My mom called me the following week and told me that she was worrying about a child that wasn't her own when she was going to bed, and that it was time for her to say something. I still didn't want her to say anything, but deep down I knew it was the motherly right thing to do. And I worried that my friend was never going to tell me anything again after this. But fast forwarding a few weeks, I met with my friend in our hometown, and we talked about everything. He said he was actually thankful that our moms spoke to each other, because when she picked him up from school on the ride home, she brought it up to him, and he was so scared to bring up anything that by my mom saying something to his mom, she was able to address it. I would have never said it as a teenager, but I now realize moms are always right. I was so relieved that my friend's parents were finally aware of what was going on. I felt like a weight was lifted off my shoulders, and I know that sounds bad, but I wanted to help my friend, and I was there to talk whenever he needed, but I knew listening wasn't enough for him. When we met to talk in person, he told me the whole story about how his bad days started to outnumber the good. There were days when he stayed in bed all day, and he lived in residence with concrete blocks and no sunlight, so I'm sure that didn't help either. I don't know why they designed residence that way. That needs to stop. I tried to empathize with him, but I think I just ended up sympathizing instead. He told me that the Dawn in his residence was the first person he told that he was feeling really bad. His Dawn directed him to proper medical services, but they also came up. There's someone standing at the door. Can you come in? But they also came up with a safe plan for him. And one of the steps in this safe plan was developing a list of people who my friend knew he could call at any given time, and they would answer the phone and be there for him. So he told me that I was actually on this list. And today I feel honored that he felt he could rely and depend on me. But then I was freaking out because I had no idea what I would say or what I would do if I actually got that phone call in an emergency situation. I was not prepared to deal with this. I was thinking, what if he was thinking about suicide? And he had been. Nearing the end of our conversation, suicide was mentioned. I can't remember exactly what he said, but it was in such a lighthearted and please don't feel bad for me tone that my response was a half laugh, and we'll save that for the next chat. Current suicide intervention trained Adele wants to punch past untrained suicide intervention Adele in the face for saying that. If you all choose one thing to take away from this speech, please let it be to ask your loved ones about suicide if you suspect they are thinking about it. Asking someone about suicide does not put the idea in their head. It shows that you're not afraid to talk about it with them. And if they have been thinking about suicide, they'll be so thankful that someone has finally shown they're not afraid to talk about that with them. And if they weren't thinking about suicide, they'll just say no, and that will be that. Luckily for me, there were and continue to be many next chats with my friends, and I thank God for this, but it doesn't always work this way. My next experience as an unexpected mental health caregiver came at the beginning of my second year of university. I answered a call from an unknown number, never expecting to hear my ex-boyfriend's voice on the other end of the line. Given the way our relationship ended, I was not at all pleased to be hearing from him. He began with small talk, to which I gave one-word answers. Somehow this small talk led into him telling me that he thinks he tried to kill himself last weekend. I didn't know what to say, so I said nothing. He asked me if I was still there, and I asked him why it was me that he called. He's surprised by my answer. He then told me it was a mistake that he called, and he ended the phone call. I was definitely worried about him, but I did not want to be that person for him at that time. So I contacted a close friend of his and asked if he would talk to him for me and see what was going on. So he did, but it was a lot of talk and no action, so I decided to get in contact with him again. He was hesitant in telling me what happened, but eventually we did talk, and I urged him to get help. Thankfully, he agreed to do so, and we parted ways once again. So after both of these experiences, I began to realize the prevalence of mental illness and the importance of mental wellness. I still didn't quite understand how these people in my life found themselves in the darkest of places. It pained me to think that there were people, even people close to me, who viewed a world without themselves in it as a better place for everyone. It was at this point that I knew that I had to take advantage of my mental wellness and put my thoughts into action. I applied to become a volunteer on the crisis phone line here in Niagara. I've now been volunteering there for the past 2 years, and I know without a doubt that that was the best decision I've ever made. I've been given the opportunity to provide emotional support for those who need it more than anyone. I've learned a great deal about the significance of a non-judgmental mindset. When we pass judgment, feelings get hurt. It's really that easy. There's always a reason behind what we perceive to be someone's unreasonable actions, and a lot of the time, this reason is a mental illness. We are in no place to tell someone else what they should feel, how they should feel, or when they should feel it. Through my commitment to Distress Center Niagara, I've had the opportunity to become Safe Talk, Assist, and Mental Health First Aid certified. Basically, this means that if someone is struggling with suicide ideation or any other mental health crisis situation, I have the skills to help them. If you're a mentally healthy person and are interested in learning more about any of those workshops, I'd be more than happy to answer your questions. I truly believe it is a moral duty of the mentally well to support the mentally ill in any way we possibly can, because when I is replaced with we, even illness becomes wellness.
We have an announcement that we're going to make. Elizabeth actually has an announcement. She's going to talk in regards to...
Okay, so I'm part of Active Minds and Charlie Long Arms at Rock here, and we're having an event at Matt High. So I want to read you a thing that my cousin wrote to me because she couldn't be here. Anyways, okay, so Open Mic Night is Brock Right Love Our Arms New Chapter's second annual cafe night. Right Love on Our Arms is a nonprofit movement dedicated to presenting hope and finding help for people struggling with depression, addiction, self-injury, and suicide. The idea of Open Mic Night is to allow artists to share their music and stories with the audience in hopes of breaking down the stigma surrounding mental health issues. Each artist will have the opportunity to share their art and engage in conversation about their inspiration, their struggles, and their motivation. We have about 11 artists coming, including Matt Fleming and headliners Ash and Bloom. The event is being held on the 21st of March at 7 p.m. at Matt Thai Cafe, and if you don't know where Matt Thai Cafe is, it's actually right around the corner from the downtown bus terminal. It's really easy to get there. Tickets are $5 in advance and $7 at the door. And if anyone's interested to come to the event, you can buy tickets for me tonight after lunch. All right, thank you.
Our next speaker I'm super excited to present. I got an email in September from this girl, and you know, I get a lot of emails and, you know, hey, I want to get more information about how I joined, but this girl really stood out to me because she basically gave a summary of what she did in high school, and I was blown away by her experience.
And I was so excited that she wanted to be a part of our team. And I'm really excited because we literally asked her 2 days ago if she could speak for us, and she's like, I'll be honored, and you're a lifesaver. So I'm really excited to present the next one. Her name's Alex, and she's a first year in medical sciences. In high school, she started a peer support program in high school for victims of bullying, mental health awareness, and people who needed someone to talk to. Really great. You don't really hear a lot of high school students starting up like that, so super excited, and you're going places.
All right, well, I was unfortunately not as lucky as Adele. I have had a few mental illnesses. I was actually 12 years old when I cut for the first time. When I was in grade 6, I was socially bullied, and I didn't think it was that big of a deal, because I mean, grade 6, middle school, everyone was trying to fit in, and you know, everyone gets bullied, so it didn't seem like that big of a deal. But I ate lunch by myself, and I did group projects by myself, but whatever, just 1 year, it's fine. I started getting a lot of low self-confidence, though. I thought that I was fat, I thought that I was ugly, I had way too much acne, it was just every single little thing. And I started getting bullied for the clothing that I was wearing, as well as the clothing that I wasn't wearing. I wasn't wearing brand name clothes, and that was just awful, apparently. In grade 7, my school shut down, and they moved us all to a new school, which I thought, hey, this is great. Maybe this will be a fresh start. I'm with all my friends, new school, new beginnings. It'll be so much better. Grade 7 is going to be awesome. But it didn't go that well. I was continually socially bullied, but then the verbal bullying started. And it was a couple of guys in my class in particular. And at first it was, you know, okay, whatever, guys are guys. I mean, they're 13-year-old boys. What are you going to do about it? But it started getting really bad, and it started spreading to other people as well. And there were a lot of people that started bullying me, where it got to the point that I would walk down the hall and I would hear someone say she or her, and I automatically assumed that they were talking poorly about me. I automatically assumed I did something wrong, I'm an awful person, and I just couldn't handle it. By the time grade 8 started, everyone was bullying me. There were 100 kids in my grade, and I was being bullied by 100 of them. And I felt so alone. I was in, you know, my own personal hell, and I was just sad all the time. I would go home crying more days than not, and it was just an absolutely awful, awful feeling. It was then that I started cutting. And for the first time in a couple of years, I felt like I had control over my life and the pain that I was receiving, because for the first time, it wasn't someone else that was hurting me. It was me, and I could control it, and that made me feel better. And there was this, one of my friends called me emo, and for whatever reason, this has stuck in my head that it bothered me so much, and I couldn't quite put my finger on it, but that was something that really, really bothered me. I didn't even know what mental health or mental illness was in grade 8. I didn't know what depression was, or self-injury, or suicidal thoughts, really. I just knew that something was wrong with me, and that I shouldn't be thinking about committing suicide more often than I was thinking about my schoolwork. I remember thinking about committing suicide 3 times, and I was close those 3 times, and it was thinking about my mom. I'm sorry, that I just couldn't go through with it. We used to go window shopping all the time, and she didn't know about everything. She just knew that something was wrong and that I was upset. About halfway through grade 8, I had had enough of it, and I had built up enough courage to talk to my teachers, and I was about to go talk to them when I heard them bully me, and I heard them laugh at me and make fun of me, and that was rock bottom. Teachers were supposed to have a zero tolerance policy with bullying, and they were the ones bullying me. So I had cuts all over my body, and I was depressed, and I just knew that something was wrong, and I didn't know how to get the help that I needed if I couldn't get it from my teachers. I had about 6 friends that I hung out with, my best friends, but they bullied me as well. I remember sitting in computer class beside my best friend, and she laughed and made fun of me, and she tucked her hair behind her ear and muffled her laugh with her hand. I remember it so clearly. I remember choking back tears, running into the hallway, and crying. I remember no one came out to see if I was okay. Not my friend, not my teacher, not anyone walking down the hall. I was alone in that school. My best friend, we were actually able to talk about it a couple of years later, a little while later, and we're still best friends to this day, so it does get better. One thing that really helped me through that was music. I got my first iPod, and music was my constant companion. I was listening to it all the time, and each band offered some sort of different, message of, darling, it'll be okay, and even though I'm losing, I haven't lost yet. So that was amazing. And I also started reading a lot of books. It took me into a world that wasn't as hellish as the one that I was actually living in. So that was what really got me through grade 8. It didn't take away the depression or the sexual harassment that I started receiving, I guess. It didn't take away the anxiety, the laughter, the mocking, the hurt, the pain, or any of that, but it did make me feel temporarily better, and for that I was thankful. My mom and I decided that I would switch schools for high school, and that was the best decision I have ever made in my entire life. My best friend decided to come with me, and it was a brand new start. I wasn't with anyone that I was with before. All of the bullies were gone. The mocking, the laughing, the jokes, everything was gone. The sexual harassment, gone, but the memories weren't. And I was still haunted by what I had been through before. I was still cutting through grade 9. I thought about suicide, and I was still hurt. I was waking up in the middle of the night with cold sweats, crying, and I didn't know what was wrong. I didn't know how to get help. I had a boyfriend at that point, and I thought that he was supposed to, magically make me feel better, make me feel loved, like, they do in the movies, but instead we fought all the time, and it made recovery really difficult. In grade 10, I found out that one of my good friends was cutting as well, and it hurt me so much to know that she was going through the same pain that I was going through, but at the same time, it made me feel like I wasn't so alone because there was someone else who was feeling that bad, and that I wasn't the only person in the world who was feeling like that. We bonded over, the pain we felt and our own music therapy and just making each other feel better, and that's what we did because it felt amazing to finally have someone to talk to who understood what I was going through. My boyfriend and I had been together on and off for about a year at that point, and he decided that it was time to get sexual, and I wasn't ready for that. And he didn't really care if I was ready or not. He decided that it was go time. We broke up shortly after that on his terms because I wasn't sexual enough and I was too much to deal with and I was having too many breakdowns and he just didn't want to put up with me anymore. So I was absolutely heartbroken, but I moved on. I went on. My nanny passed away that Mother's Day, and I was really close to her, and that was a huge step backwards in whatever recovery progress that I was making. My mom saw that I had 4 cuts on my leg, and she did not believe that it was my neighbor's dog. So we agreed that I would go see the doctor after exams in the summer, and if I was still feeling upset. Reluctantly, I went to my doctor. We spent almost an hour together, and I told him every single detail, and he said, okay, yep, you're depressed, you have anxiety, all of these other things, and you have no reason to be. You have no reason to be depressed, you have no reason to be anxious, you have no reason to be any of this, because you have a great family, you've had a great upbringing. Like, there are so many kids in so many other positions that are worse than yours. You have no reason to be feeling this. And, well, of course, that just made me feel even worse because I was depressed and anxious and had absolutely no reason to be. I know now that what he said was wrong, because it doesn't matter your background or your upbringing or anything. Mental illness affects anyone and everyone in some way, shape, or form. Grade 11 started, and I was still listening to music a lot, still reading a lot of books, and I tried to focus on my schoolwork, and everything was going better. I had a new boyfriend. Everything was, looking up on the bright side. I took a class called Genocides and Crimes Against Humanities, and it was probably my favorite class ever. I loved it so much. For my culminating project, I actually compared bullying to genocide, saying that bullying is a playground genocide. But that's when it kind of hit me that I wasn't the only person who was still struggling with things that had happened to me in the past, whether it's bullying or anything else. But originally my focus was on bullying because that's what had happened to me. So I decided with my genocides teacher, my guidance counselor, and my best friend that I was going to start a peer support program for victims of bullying. And from that, it spread and became a mental health awareness program, as well as a program for anyone who wanted someone to talk to, or somewhere to eat at lunch, or just a shoulder to cry on, or a hand to hold in getting help. We never offered any specific training specific guidance, because we didn't have the proper training, but we did get some training. We had mental health training, we had suicide alertness training, as well as compassion and empathetic listening training. So we had enough skills that if someone were to come talk to us, we would know what to do. I talked to a lot of people, actually, and I heard a lot of really incredible and powerful stories that were incredibly sad, but there was so much hope in them, and helping those people gave me a lot of hope as well. The group that we started, we called Open Minds, Open Hearts, Open World, or Open Minds for short. Sorry. And we had our room open to absolutely everyone every single day at lunch. As well as that, we did classroom visits. We did awareness days, awareness weeks, classroom announcements, classroom seminars. I ran assemblies. We did a whole bunch of incredible things that made an impact on our school. And I was so proud about that. I was so happy, and for the first time, I was healing, and I was healing in a very, very healthy way. I was still cutting every once in a while, and I still had breakdowns, but I was okay with that because I knew that it was going to be a process to heal, that it wasn't just going to magically go away overnight, that it was going to be a long road, but that was okay because I was on it and I was doing better. My boyfriend, Deja Vu anyone, decided that it was time to get sexual after being together for a little while. And a repeat of what happened with my other boyfriend. We broke up because I wasn't sexual enough and I was just too much to handle. It wasn't the best summer, but at the same time, it wasn't the worst. Stupidly enough, I got back together with him in September, and it was different that time. He was a lot more abusive, physically and verbally. He would say things like, "Why can't you be more like her?" And he would say that about both my best friend and his ex-girlfriend. So yeah, he was charming. Despite all of that, I was the recipient of the YMCA's Canada Peace Medal, the Hamilton Wentworth District School Board Profiling Excellence Award, and the Westdale Salute to Excellence Award for my work with Open Minds. It was an absolute incredible honor, and I am still so honored to be able to say that I have accomplished those things for the group that I started. My boyfriend and I broke up, which was honestly a breath of fresh air. And I was still having panic attacks when I saw him sometimes, and I was still, anxious, and I wasn't completely better yet, but things were getting better. I graduated high school with honors, and my grandfather passed away 2 days before my graduation. I've made a lot of mistakes in my life. I've done a lot of things that, maybe I should have done differently or shouldn't have done, but I don't regret them because I wouldn't be standing here today if I hadn't made those mistakes and if I hadn't learned so much. Some days are a lot easier than others. Even now, even though I haven't seen a lot of those bullies in 4 years, 5 years. I'm still haunted by it, but I'm no longer waking up in the middle of the night crying with cold sweats. I no longer think about suicide, and it's been a very long time since I last cut, and for that I am so proud of myself. I still have depression and anxiety, and whenever I hear someone say, she's so annoying, I think, oh my god, I know I am, I'm so sorry, like it has to be me. I don't think I'm pretty or funny or talented or smart or anything wonderful or anything special, but I'm doing so much better now than I have in years, and I'm so proud of myself, and I'm so thankful for the people who have supported me. I am now in an amazing relationship with a wonderful boyfriend who doesn't pressure me for anything. He's wonderful. He's also sitting right there. I have friends who I love so much and who love me for me and all of me. And I have a family who I love more than anything. And it's difficult to condense the last, 7-8 years of my life into 15 minutes. But if I can just say one last closing thing, it is that no matter how bad it seems, it does get better. I am living, breathing proof that it does get better. And I would just love to be able to spread the word of it gets better. So thank you so much for hearing my story, and I hope that you now have some hope that even though you're going through hell, keep going, because it gets better. You'll be out on the other side soon. Thank you.
We're going to move on to our last speaker of the night. Then afterwards, we'll break again for some delicious snacks, and then we'll do questions. Alrighty. In case anybody has any questions or comments, we also have really great resources. We'll talk a little bit about Eating Disorder Awareness Week, which is also going on. So many fantastic things happening in one day. Great. So we'll move on to our last speaker then.
Okay, our last speaker is someone who has truly shown me what strength is. She always has a smile on her face, and no matter how stressed she is as a first year, she always remains positive. She is an extraordinary writer and actually has gotten some pieces published in the Brock Press. I'd like to invite Keely to the stage. She's a first year hoping to get into child news studies. This is her first time speaking. Too much attention.
All of us have a story, whether it's a story of intense suffering, great loss, pain, or triumph. We all have one. And whether it's to inspire others or to help heal ourselves, stories are meant to be told. And for those reasons and many more, I'm going to be sharing my story with you today. It started in grade 3 when a new girl came to school. Up until that point, my visual impairment hadn't really been a problem. I got picked on from time to time, but never anything serious. When this girl came, all of a sudden, all of my friends turned against me, and instead of having people to play with on the playground, I was by myself. People would see the blind girl on the playground and, feel sorry for me, and they'd come up to me and try and talk to me, and then they'd end up leaving too. On top of all that same year, my dad got leukemia and died a week and a half after my 9th birthday, leaving my mom alone with 4 children. At the end of my grade 3 year, my last sister moved out, leaving my mom and I alone together, and because of that, I had to grow up really quickly. Grades 4 and 5 at public school only kept getting worse. The school board ended up taking away my educational assistant, leaving me unable to see the blackboard, have help in the classroom, or anything. I fell behind in my academics, and the students didn't take easily to it. Before I got Onyx, I used what's called a white cane, which is a mobility tool which helped me get from class to class. They used to steal my cane, forcing me to walk to class with nothing. I had no cane, and of course, no Onyx at that point. They'd laugh at me thinking it was funny as I tripped all over the place. And by the end of grade 5, I'd had enough. So I switched to a school for the blind just outside Toronto. That school is a boarding school. And there, I learned to cook, clean, and do all sorts of other things that I never thought I'd be able to do. One of my most actually fondest memories of my grade 6 year, my first year at the blind school, was the first time I got to spray whipping cream. Instead of spraying it on the ice cream sundae, I sprayed it on the fruit bowl and on the walls of the residence. And we all laughed because it was funny and we all understood it, and there was no one going, "Kaylee, watch out!" It wasn't a big deal. And for a while I loved being at the blind school. It was what I needed. But me and my mom, as the years progressed, began to fight more and more, and by the time I got to grade 9, I was angry, and I didn't know how to take out that anger. So instead, I took it out on other people, and I became someone who I completely wasn't. My mom got a lot of phone calls home that year, and I vowed to myself that I would change in grade 10. Luckily, they decided to switch me residences, and I was given the chance to start completely new. I went to the new residence, and less than a month into school, the staff, who had never met me before, began to call me judgmental, rude, possessive, with no reason. My mom ended up having a meeting with all the staff on the floor, and I never got an apology. There was nothing. I felt empty. I felt angry, and I didn't want to take it on other people. I didn't want to be that grade 9 Keely, but I didn't want to be that loner who I was in public school. So I thought cutting would help. It would help ease my feelings, and that way I could be happy during school and then cry at night. And that's what I did, and it worked for a little while. One time while we were doing nails, one of the resident staff asked me why I always wore a sweater. So I told her, I just like wearing long sleeves. And she's like, "Are you sure?" And I said, "Yes." And she's like, "Are you sure you're not cutting yourself?" And I said, "Of course not." A few weeks later, the cleaning staff filed a complaint about bloody Kleenexes and toilet paper and paper towels in the bathroom on a regular basis. So they pulled me and my 2 other bathroom mates into the staff room and asked us again, is someone cutting in this bathroom? What's going on? And everyone said no. And they said, "Well, what's with all the bloody Kleenexes?" So I said, "My nose, I have problems with my nose, it bleeds." And they believed me. And 3 months later, my mom found out and asked me if cutting was a club at school, if I cut with all my friends. Well, of course not, Mom. I did it of my own accord. But how could I tell her that? It's not one of those things that you could just say, "Mom, I did it because I was angry. Mom, I did it because I felt this way." It was heartbreaking. She was heartbroken. I was heartbroken. And she took me to see a psychologist. The psychologist decided to inform me that having my visual impairment, I would never get a job because an employer would be off-put by my eyes and I'd scare away all the customers. So I stopped seeing her. But that summer, a lovely black lab named Onyx came into my life. I got my guide dog, and Onyx gave me freedom, love, and a reason to wake up in the morning. So when I started grade 11, I was again filled with that hope. Grade 11's gonna be better, I have Onyx. But my friends, when I confided in my friends what was going on, they called me an attention seeker. I started seeing the school psychiatrist, he called me an attention seeker. I actually had an incident that grade 11 year where one of the staff blamed me for telling on them for something that I didn't tell on them for. It was actually watching too much TV and not doing their job. And the staff said, "I've been working here 35 years and I love my job, but people like you make me hate it." The last straw was when I was in Boston and I hurt my ankle. I tore a ligament and it was clearly swollen and you could see the swelling. My friends called me an attention seeker and left me, abandoned me, I had to go to the mall with the staff instead of being with my friends in a group. And I didn't want to be around anymore because I was just some attention seeker. No one was realizing that I was crying out for help. And at the end of the year, I got hospitalized for mental health because I didn't want to live anymore. I didn't want to do it. And that's when my mom enrolled me in a summer arts writing camp. And that's when I discovered my passion for writing and began to heal. Writing gave me a way to take out my anger on paper as opposed to on myself. It gave me a way to express myself through characters, through scenes that I could create. I ended up becoming quite the poet, and I vowed to myself at that camp that in grade 12 I would apply to university, and I did. I told my guidance counselor at parent-teacher interview night that I was going to apply to university, and I told her what schools I was thinking of: Brock, Carleton, U, Waterloo, and Queens. She told me and my mother that those are really big schools and that Keeley wouldn't get into those. I ended up getting into 3 out of the 4 schools, starting my own writing group, and winning an award for outstanding academic achievement my last year of high school. I am now a first-year Brock U student, and I am majoring in English, but I'm going to switch to Child and Youth Studies. I'm working on my first book, and I hope to be a teacher one day so that I can inspire the lives of my students. I'm a survivor, and I'm telling my story today in honor of all those who never got the chance to tell their story, or in honor of those who aren't ready to tell their story yet. Survival is your strength, not your shame, and I can safely say that I'm a survivor, and I know one day you all will be too. Thank you.
All right. So what we'll do is we will take care of any questions that anyone might have now. So if I can maybe have our 3 wonderfully amazing speakers come up to the front. This way, if there are any questions, we can address them. And then we can break and go over some resources that we have for you guys today. So, yeah. Perfect.
Yeah. So with your experiences with bullying and stuff like that, are there any initiatives you'd like to see in school now, especially in high schools? Because today's actually Anti-Bullying Day in high schools, which is awesome. So yeah, please. So I was just wondering, is there any initiatives that you would think would be really great to see in schools? And if so, what would it be?
This question is for me.
For anybody, yeah.
Okay, well, I'm going to jump ahead. I think a lot of people, teachers especially, think that as soon as the bully says, "I'm sorry," whether it's half-assed or wholehearted, that's it. All of the pain is gone. And I also think that a lot of things start in middle school when people are truly starting to figure out who they are aside from their parents. I mean, there's influences all over the place, and I think that that's one of the places that we need to start. One of the things that I tried to do, but ended up graduating before I could do, was getting into middle schools and speaking with the grade 8s. And I mean, I started having a lot of these feelings in grade 6 and grade 7. And you know, a lot of people might think, oh, that's way too young to expose them to that kind of thing. But for a lot of kids, they need to start hearing that, you know what, it's going to be okay. So I think that having a high school, middle school kind of buddy system almost would be something that might be beneficial. Yeah, that's one thing that I think would be really good. I think it would also help the high school students as well, just to kind of see perspective of, you know, maybe reflect on who they were in middle school, and then kind of be like, maybe I don't want to be that person anymore, or maybe, you know what, oh, I did a good job in middle school, go me. So I think it kind of works both ways.
I have a question. I guess specifically for Adele, but anyone can answer it. Because I know when I told my friends and opened up to them about mental health issues, a lot of them were like, I never would have guessed that you know, you were going through those things. So what do you think there's things for people in this room who might be friends with someone who's going through something, but they don't know it? Like, how do you think that we, as people who are going through it, or you on the other end as friends, or even us like who do suffer, can also be supportive and friends as well? How do we open that dialogue? Like, what do you think that we can try and encourage just people in general to do, even if those signs aren't obvious? if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I totally understand. Okay, I learned this just recently at a workshop. So everybody always asks the question, how are you? Which, whatever, that's fine, especially for someone that you don't know. That's really all you can ask. But for your friends and your family, you know what is going on in their life for the most part. So to ask, how are you, you're gonna get the answer, good, you, or not bad, you. It's just gonna be very generic. So instead of asking that question, I would try and say, like, how is your mom doing, say if their mother is sick, or how is this specific thing going on in your life, because you're so much more likely to get an honest and direct answer than just, how are you? So yeah, that's one way.
No, it's a good idea, yeah. Anything else, I guess? Like maybe what you guys would have liked to have seen or heard from your friends too?
You want to?
Julie, any thoughts?
Sure. I think I would have liked my men to be a little more compassionate, because I know in grade 11 when they used to actually walk in on me crying and they just tell me to get over it. And I just wish that they were a bit more compassionate, understanding it wasn't just all about them, like all the time. Also, I think being at a boarding school, I think the resident staff should have more training. There was actually an incident end of my grade 11 year where I was going to go take Onyx for a walk, and it was summer and I had long sleeves on, and I said I'm going to go take Onyx for a walk, and they told me to put a sweater on because everyone knows you cut. So it was just so insensitive, and I ran to the bathroom and cried. And it's just the fact that they're not well equipped, and a lot of people don't realize that because not everyone goes to boarding school.
I just want to give so many people in your life a shake.
No.
Teachers.
Awesome, thanks. Any other questions?
Oh.
Any questions?
This is for all of you, but what do you think is the biggest obstacle that adults need to overcome when talking to, the youth in their lives? Because that seems to be a pretty big thing for, like, all of you is, talking to your parents or teachers or, what's the barrier that seems to arise between the age gap that you think needs to change the most?
Okay. Well, I think a lot of the time adults have trouble like putting themselves back into our position and younger than us too. Like your doctor, for instance, who I just want to.
He's a phenomenal doctor. Get that out there. He's absolutely wonderful.
But yeah, like I just think for them, it's easy to see that things will get better because they're in that position where they know that, but they forget that when we're in that position, we don't know that, and even someone who's drilling it down our throat is not gonna make us believe it anymore. You just have to experience it. So I'm just being empathetic and non-judgmental of the situation. Hopefully, would help.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely agree. I also think having a parent say, like, you're fine, get over it, it's not that bad, is really discouraging. It just kind of makes it feel a lot worse because it's like, oh, great, this is wonderful, I should be fine, apparently. So that's one thing that I think just being open, being able to listen, because it's one thing to say it. Here I am standing up here shaking knees, but it's another thing to hear it. And I think a lot of adults just don't want to hear that something is wrong with their child. Like my mom cried so much when she found out because, she wants me to be this perfect little angel and she doesn't want anything to hurt me. And the fact that something was hurting me was breaking her heart too. So I think that just being open and just being able to both talk and listen is a really valuable skill for any age group, but especially parents.
I agree with that. I think it'd be really cool if schools could actually do like workshops with parents on how to deal with mental health issues in their kids. That's just my little opinion.
As well as teachers.
Yeah, as well as teachers and
Let's get
parents.
that started.
No, sir.
Because, parents, they're not trained like teachers are, right? So it's like something comes up, it's like they have to deal with it on their feet. Not like teachers who should have that kind of training. I think training benefits them.
Awesome, thanks, Scott.
Wasn't really a question. I just wanted to thank you guys for talking because it must have taken so much to get up there and to even see the words clearly on the paper was probably so hard. It takes a lot of courage, and I think the fact that you're able to even get up there shows how far you've come, and you should really like be proud of yourself. And to be a support for friends is not easy, especially because everybody has their own life, right? So it's hard to be that support system. So I just wanted to thank you guys for that.
Any other questions or any thoughts from like anyone? I just love talking.
I have a question for Alex.
Yeah.
You mentioned a lot of boyfriends.
Yeah.
Were you open with them about your mental illness?
I wasn't at first. So I had 2 boyfriends before my current boyfriend, and my first boyfriend I wasn't at first because I was ashamed of who I was and what I was doing, and I just didn't want anyone to know about it, and I thought if I just put it all, buried it inside of me, it would just magically go away soon, but that didn't happen, and eventually I did tell him, and that was a whole other argument. And he didn't know how to handle it at first, which I completely expected, because how can you just say, oh, by the way, I love you so much, I can't. It's kind of an awkward conversation. But my second boyfriend, I was more upfront with him. I said, look, this is a part of me. I have come to accept that, and if you want to be in a relationship with me, and if you are going to love me, you have to love all of me. And he was like, okay, at first, and then just went downhill from there. So. My current boyfriend, I was very open, and he is totally accepting, and he's here now and very supportive, so.
Any final? Oh, yep.
So what would have, I guess, believing in you and empathy looked like for each of you when you were in that? And obviously it wouldn't have been a one-time thing, it would have been over and over. So what would that have looked like to you? What would have been meaningful?
I don't know what you mean.
So you said what the gap that adults could have bridged, your teachers, your parents, you were looking for compassion and empathy, from your friends.
Right.
So and when you're in an ongoing relationship, obviously being empathetic one time isn't going to solve it when they probably want to solve it too.
Yeah.
So in that ongoing situation, say time after time while you're wrestling with that, what was your wish, I guess? Words or mannerisms, that kind of thing?
Mm-hmm. Okay, I understand. Do you want to answer?
Okay.
Okay.
Sure.
I got some.
I think, you got something.
No, I mean like.
Oh, okay. I think one of the things I'll start with my teachers. Actually, I'll start with my doctor first. I think with my doctor, having him say that I was just wrong was his first biggest mistake. I think saying to someone that, yes, you're struggling with this, yeah, you know what, you've got a broken arm. That's great. I can see that it's broken, but get over it. It doesn't work that way. So I think that's something that for doctors, they shouldn't say. I think for teachers, I wish that someone had stood up for me instead of, it wasn't invisible. It wasn't like, teachers didn't see that I was being bullied all the time, because bullying happens every 25 minutes in the classroom, and I think I can say that I was a little higher than that statistic. And I wish that a teacher had said, hey, you know what, kid, like, you're not funny, this isn't funny, you're hurting this person. I think that would have made a huge difference. And in high school, I actually stood up for one of my friends in grade 9, and I said, hey, you know what, friend, you're not funny for bullying this girl. And he was like, oh, well, yeah, I'm really funny. And I was like, no, you're not. And that was one of the first, sorry, I have terrible acting skills. That was one of the first times that I had realized that how much power a bystander has. Teachers always say, don't be the bystander, stand up for someone, but no, really, stand up for someone. There is so much power. If someone had stood up for me, that could have been a moment that gave me hope, that saved my life. Had I, continued on with some of the things that I had started doing. But I think as far as parents, I think always being open, but not as so open that it's almost like pressure. Like for a while, my mom was hovering over me too much, whereas like, how are you feeling right now? Okay, well, it's been like 5 minutes now. How are you feeling? Like, are you feeling any better now? And I understand her concern, and I know that it was just pure love for me and just wanting to see me do well. But the fact that it was just constantly, and then we would go for huge breaks where it would be nothing, like it never happened. So I think having a better mix of that, where it's like, hey, you know what? How is everything going today? Is a lot better than every 5 minutes and then never for like 7 months. So I think finding a good balance is something that parents can do. Yeah.
And then for me, okay, so my friend who had all the mental illnesses, like as I said, at that time I wasn't educated, so I honestly don't feel like I did much. Like I just listened to him and I answered his calls and text messages and did what I could do to my potential. And then after I started getting educated and started volunteering, now like when I'm volunteering on the crisis line, it's hard to give this advice for people talking to their loved ones because when I'm on the phone, I kind of have to emotionally detach from it, and I wouldn't give that advice to a parent to their child because that's impossible. But we were trained to always explore the dark side first. So when someone calls you, they're in a crisis, they don't want to talk about all the good things that they have going on in their life. They don't want to hear, you have all these things, you have no reason to be depressed. So for a parent, teacher, friend, anyone, I would just say listen to what the person is saying before you try and jump into, you have all these great things, why do you feel so horrible?
That's really good.
That is really good advice.
For me, I think just people being more open to listen was really my thing, because I'm one of those people who likes to kind of talk about it, not in front of a large crowd of people, but like I'm kind of like one of those people that's like it makes me feel better if I can talk about it and explain to people how I feel. And like for example, like after all this started to happen, my mom never talks about it, and it's like sometimes I wish she would say something, but then I'm like, well, what would she say? And it's just like, but the silence about it, sometimes it's just like, I just want, I wish you would just say something. And for like my psychiatrist who called me attention seeker, I just wish that, and my psychologist who made the comment about my eyes, I just wish they'd been more professional and been more able to listen. And I think like listening is one of the biggest keys to, because listening leads to understanding.
They should also get their licenses.
Seriously.
Are there any other questions, thoughts, comments? Okay, so now I have just a fun little treat. So I also, on behalf of myself and everyone here, want to thank all of you guys for all the amazing knowledge and experience you guys have shared with us. So maybe one more time if we can all give a round of applause.
Hi, I'm Lauren Kalusny.
And I'm Michael Marchione.
And I'm the president and vice president of Active Minds here at Brock University. Basically, our club is to educate, raise awareness, and to eliminate the stigma around mental illness. We try really hard to get the word out to the students, try and incorporate them as much as possible, hearing their side of the stories, hearing how they can and help a friend, and just really overall trying to send a positive message that we are all supporters here at Brock University.
So today we hosted our annual Speak Out Night event, which Active Minds has done for the past 4 years. We had a really great turnout and 3 amazing speakers who shared their stories and their experiences with mental illness, and we had perspectives on directly being affected and also what it's like to be a friend and a supporter. So we had a really great turnout tonight, and everyone got to share their experiences and ask questions. And that's just one of the many great events that Active Minds runs every year.
Yeah, we're actually having our next event, which is March 26th. Mark it down in your calendar. It's a Wednesday night, and we've teamed up with 2 of the guys on the hockey team, and we're having a student versus faculty hockey fundraiser in support of us, Active Minds, here at Brock University, so that we can get the word out next year and for future years. If you want any more information, you can email us at activemindsbu@boostu.net. We'd be happy to hear from you.